BBC Radio Gloucestershire. Now, the history of a tin church in the Forest of Dean is being preserved in a new heritage project, and a special series of films were premiered recently as part of that. Bilson Mission dates back over 100 years, originally located in the woods before being moved to Cinderford. However, last month, the building itself was demolished. Now, the voices from the Forest team, as you've been hearing, have been recording people's memories as well as researching archives over the last 6 months or so. And last week, a special event showing a series of films of their recollections was held at the Excel Centre in Cinderford, and Joe Durrant went along to find out more.
I'm Roger Deeks from the Voices from the Forest project. Well, there's two parts to the project, Joe. The first one is archival research, because we're looking into the early history of the mission, which is remarkably interesting. The second part of the history we're looking at is the remembered history, which is all the people who live around Bilson, who went to the mission, they worshipped there, they went to Sunday school there, and what we've tried to do with that aspect of the project is capture the oral histories, the memories of these people. It's just shown us what a vector the mission was for the community. So what we've done with those interviews is we've constructed some short digital films which actually are people narrating some of their memories of the mission, and put next to them some images that belong to those people, their own images of services, of where they lived and so forth. So we put that together, and then today we're very, very pleased that we've got a large number of the people who've contributed come, and this is a premiere of those short films. So we're really just letting people look, enjoy it, and appreciate their histories and how they come together to form this collective understanding of the mission. Of course, across that timeline as well, the mission was actually demolished. It was something we'd anticipated, and it had been empty for 4 or 5 years now, and that has really emphasised the importance of this work in creating a living memory of the mission. We're all very sad to see it go, but in a way it was there was some inevitability to that, because the building was unsafe. The community had looked at using it for other purposes, nothing had come up, and it was at risk of becoming very derelict. If it had been a stone building, and if the church had owned the land and they'd sold it, which happens to a lot of churches, it would have just become another property. In a way, its demise is the same as its beginning. It was a temporary building, it was always intended as that, and now it's gone. And it can be commemorated through our project, perhaps through a commemoration on the site, but maybe that's a fitting way to think about this building, because it was always intended as an outreach building, as a mission. It was never actually a formal church. It was never consecrated as a church, although it's been almost used as one in the ways that it has been used by its congregation.
Hi, I'm Lynn Chaundy. I was the last lay reader at Bilson Mission Church in Cinderford. I was brought up, but I wasn't born on Blakeney Hill. And in 1986, my parents still lived there. So when my marriage fell apart, it seemed sensible to get, as close as I could to them.
How important has it been for you to get involved with this particular oral history project?
Pretty important, I think, because now we've lost the actual building, we need to record what happened there and preserve it for future generations, because, again, very, very few tin churches still exist.
And you've brought lots of things with you today, Lynn. Can you just maybe show me some of the things you've brought?
That was a cross-stitch that my sister produced.
Oh, this is actually of the chapel, church, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
This we did for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. And we also did a lunch for her 90th birthday, and somebody wrote to the palace, and we've got a letter back.
Oh, so this is from a lady in waiting, isn't it? Dated 19th of September 2016.
There's a brilliant picture of Her Late Majesty on the back. We had Sunday school, and I decided that we should start something called a family service, because the Sunday school didn't really meet the rest of the congregation. So that, we got going in the late 1980s. But we also had a monthly women's fellowship and Bible study. We had a sewing circle, didn't we? But the fellowship was a sort of group that organised all the fundraising activities like lunches and coffee mornings. Carol services we started in the 1990s, which were extremely well attended. display of old photographs and things like that. I mean, really anything that we thought people would be interested to see.
Mm.
That's when we celebrated our 100th anniversary. Oh, that was the final service.
Oh, 29th of July 2018, that was the Bilson Mission celebration service.
But we had moved down to Hanover Court by then.
Hello, my name is Kathleen. I was christened at Bilson. I've lived there all my life. My grandmother went there as well.
So what's your earliest memory of Bilson?
Going to Sunday school when I was quite young, probably about 4. My brother took me, and the boys were going up into choir stalls, and I wanted to go with him, and they wouldn't let me go. So I had to stay down with the others. We were all christened there. Harvest festivals were always full and decorated. Flower festivals, lunches were all very nicely done. It had a happy feeling there. You always had a party at Christmas. We always had tea in the summer, either in the wood or up at the superintendent's house up at Edgehouse Lodge.
And I hear there were their Sunday school outings, a summer trip.
Yeah, they used to have a Sunday school outing as well.
Where did you go?
Different places, quite close. Severn Beach, I can remember going, was the furthest I think we went. We always had a Christmas party, and we always had presents for service, going to church regular. We raised about £5,000 to have the toilet in, just a few of us, baking and serving coffee. It was a totally different atmosphere to a big church, very much so.
It's Jo Darrant talking to Roger Deeks from Voices from the Forest about the Bilson Mission project. You also heard from Kathleen and Lynn Chaundy, who was the last lay preacher there. There is more to come on this next.
Maddie Simpson, BBC.
Let's return now to the Forest of Dean, where the history of a tin church is being preserved by the Voices from the Forest project. It was only ever meant to be a temporary building, but stood for over 100 years in Cinderford. And as we've been hearing on the show, a special event was held last week at the Excel Centre in the town to show short films of people's oral history and photographs. Jo Darrant went along and spoke to Roger Deeks from the project, as well as those who have shared some of their memories.
I'm Barbara Morgan, and I've been at Bilson. I was at Bilson Sunday School during the early 50s up into probably 60s. Many of us all went to Bilson School as well as to the little Sunday school. So we had lots of friends and spent quite a lot of time together.
What's your earliest memory then of Bilson?
Being taken with my older sister and her 2 older friends, really just being introduced to Mr. Lees and the ladies that helped out. I can remember Mrs. Cindery and a lady that played the piano. Sunday school trips in particular, really excited. Everyone really, really looking forward to going off on the coaches. 4 coaches. Just lots of happy memories of playing on the sands. Usually it would be Barry Island. No one had an annual holiday in those days, so a trip to the sea was something very, very special. Christmas parties, held in obviously the schoolroom for the eats, but in the big church, well, it seemed big to us, there was a projector set up, and I think we put a big they put a big sheet up at the further end of the church, and it definitely was Mickey Mouse cartoons. We were a little bit short and didn't get such a good view, so we sat on the edges of the pews, which was really not the comfiest at all. Lots of fun, and it's been lovely that so many people have got such lovely memories, and it just jogs your mind, and it takes you right back to those days. Really, it's been really nice to be part and parcel of.
Hello, I'm Doreen Howard. I went to Sunday school at the Little Bilson Mission during the Second World War. I went there until we moved over to Colway when I was 11, and I was there from 5 years old. I was there for 6 years. These were mostly people that went to the little tin church we called Bilson.
So we're looking at a black and white photo. Was there a particular occasion that this was taken for?
This was the Cinderford Carnival in 1946. We just dressed them.
Hello, my name is Maureen Wheeler, nee Thomas. I started going to the Bilson mission when I was about 5 years of age and carried on until I was married, had my first children, and always went back to be churched. A lot of people are unfamiliar with this at the moment or lately. It takes one to have to explain what it is, and it was to be churched or cleansed when one had a baby. You know, you were discouraged when you had a baby, you were discouraged against going into other people's homes until you'd actually been into church just to sit and say a quiet prayer. I used to get in touch with the caretaker, Mrs. Brain, who would come and open the church for me, just go and quietly sit in there in prayer. Then you were free to go into anyone's house and have a cup of tea and a biscuit.
So you said you were at Bilson from a pretty young age. You were at Sunday school there,
yes,
were you?
Yes, from about 5 years of age.
What are some of your memories from that time?
Funny things that spring to mind is the fact that I always had 3 sets of clothes, and they were always laid out on the bed for me. There was the set for church, my best, Sunday best, and then my school clothes, white blouses, neatly washed and starched, and play clothes. And when one lot wore out, the other lot would sort of, in succession, it would be, yeah. We had like presentation days a couple of times in the year, and my mother would always ensure that I had the best, and I always looked proper. But I also strongly remember Mr. Lees, who was, I was afraid of him in the beginning. He was, although he was a lovely, lovely man, he was also a strict disciplinarian.
It seems, talking to people today, that it's about more than the building itself. It's about that sense of community.
Oh, good Lord, yes. Yeah, and the people within it. It was a strong community, very strong community spirit. Memories are something that people, or nothing can take away from you. And they mean a lot to me. And the people that, you know, still the people today that I remember. And the families of those people.
We're just starting a project now with Forest High School, and of course all these are materials we're going to share with the young people at the high school, so they're going to learn a lot about their heritage, about this area, and also people that are new to the area. There's a lot of people come from Europe to work in the area, so they'll find out the history of the locality. It's a real rich resource for everybody that lives here, and we're looking to culminate that work and all our other work with an exhibition later in the year. We're not quite sure where we'll host that, and we want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. We want to include the products of the school are going to do some work of their own, some of their own research, and we want to include that. And we're also then looking at producing a book. And of course, Jeff, that's the real challenging bit, because chatting to people, interviewing people is great, but sitting down in a dark room and writing a book for Jason and I is going to be quite a challenge. But that's what we're going to do, so there'll be a record, a documented history.
That was Joe Durrant talking to Roger Deeks from Voices from the Forest about the Bilson Mission Project. You also heard the recollections of the Tin Church as well from Barbara Morgan, Doreen Howard and Maureen Wheeler, who were all at a special event in Cinderford last week. And it's not too late to contribute your memories to the project. You can find out all about that and the next phase of it if you go to voicesfromtheforest.co.uk.